Hi my Wholemood students, I'm back again with another lectural, tutorial and tutorial video. In today's video we are going to be talking about the most important biological pathway, which is called photosynthesis. Before we get into this video, I would like you to please hit that like, hit that comment, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. And it would really make me feel good if you share the video, so let's do that. Okay, a whole entire mood. So the vlogation. You can see that I have my terms and my diagrams, which we are going to be using today. We're going to start by explaining some of the terms, and then we're going to go to the diagram and explain all the processes that are involved in photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process by which plants, algae, and some bacteria harness solar energy from the sun and convert it into chemical energy. This is a very important biological pathway because it helps plants produce food to feed itself, and then that makes plants autotrophs because they make food by themselves. And then photosynthesis is also the reason why other organisms that are heterotrophs can't get their food, because now without photosynthesis plants cannot make food, and if plants don't make food, they cannot eat, and also heterotrophs cannot eat too. Autotrophs are plants, are organisms that are self-feeders that use organic materials to produce their own food, and they use inorganic materials to produce organic materials. And then heterotrophs are plants that feed by consuming other organisms. Okay, and then now we are going to get into photosynthesis. Photosynthesis includes a lot of chlorophyll pigments. One of those chlorophyll pigments is a pigment called chlorophyll A. Chlorophyll A is a green pigment that participates in photosynthesis. Chlorophyll A are very important because they are the one that takes the energy and transfers it into photosystems that will take place in the light reactions of photosynthesis, which we'll get to in this video. And then we also have accessory pigments. Accessory pigments are pigment molecules that are other than chlorophyll A. This includes chlorophyll B and carotenoids. Okay, and then with that said, we have a plant cell. We have a leaf which has a stomata. A stomata are openings that allows gaseous change, whereby oxygen can exit the cell and carbon dioxide can enter the cell. It also minimizes and controls the rates of transpiration. And so the stomata are openings that have guard cells that open to allow gaseous exchange and also allow water to exit the plant through a process called transpiration. And then we also have mesophyll. Mesophyll are cells that are found on the epidermis of a leaf, and those cells are the cells that are responsible for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis occurs on mesophyll cells. And then now we have, within the mesophyll cells, we have compartments that are called the chloroplast. The chloroplasts are organelles that are responsible for photosynthesis. Chloroplasts are what makes photosynthesis happen, and each cell is composed of each leaf cell is composed of about 40 to 100 to even 200 chloroplasts. So a cell has a lot of chloroplasts, which helps maximize the rates of photosynthesis, because a plant that undergoes more photosynthesis is better than a plant that does not undergo a lot of photosynthesis. And then now, as you can see here, we have the organelle of chloroplast. So this is the organelle, and then within the organelle we have the stroma. So now you see this is the organelle of chloroplast, and then the organelle has two membranes. It has an outer membrane and an inner It has an outer membrane and an inner membrane. This membrane protects everything that is within the chloroplast. It protects all the organelles and all the compartments, and it surrounds the organelle, okay, and it separates it from its surroundings. All right, and then within the chloroplast we have a fluid, the fluid which we call the stroma. Okay, this fluid is called the stroma, and the stroma it is where the light independent stage of photosynthesis occurs, which we'll get to later on in the video. And then within the stroma we find stacks of thylakoids. We find stacks of thylakoids. So each and every one of these things over here, each and every one of them, we call it thylakoids, right? And then inside you can see that there's space inside of them. This space is called thylakoid space. Thylakoid space. So within we have, excuse my handwriting, we have thylakoid space, and then this whole stack, this whole entire situation is what we call the grana. The grana. So basically the thylakoid are disc-like or pancake-like, and then they stack each other in each other, and then each whole entire stack is called the grana. Okay, and then within thylakoids you can see that we have these little black things which we call ribosomes. Ribosomes are what are responsible for manufacturing proteins, and they also aid in photosynthesis. Okay, and then so that is our thylakoid, that is our chloroplast. Our chloroplast is the organelle that is responsible for photosynthesis. It has two membranes, an outer membrane and an inner membrane, which protect the cell and separate it from its surroundings. And then we have the stroma, which is the liquid fluid compartment of the chloroplast, and then within we find another other membranes which are called thylakoids, and they stack on each other, and then inside the thylakoid we get the thylakoid space, and each whole stack of thylakoids is called the grani. Okay, and then within the thylakoids we find very many dots, and those dots we call them ribosomes, and ribosomes aid in photosynthesis, and they are also responsible for making and synthesizing proteins. Okay, so then with that said, we are gonna go into the light reactions of photosynthesis. The light reactions of photosynthesis require light for photosynthesis to occur. Without light, the light reactions of photosynthesis cannot occur, and without the light reactions, photosynthesis does not happen. So placing a plant in a dark environment where it does not get light, the plant will die, because plants need and require light. Okay, so then the light reactions of photosynthesis is just the way we use solar energy from the sun, and we convert it into chemical energy. And then the light reactions of photosynthesis has two major products. It makes ATP, and after making ATP it also makes NADPH, which we'll go to when we come to this other diagram. We're gonna explain how we make ATP, well, how a plant makes ATP and NADPH. And then we also get the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain is a group of proteins that shuttle electrons from protein to protein. Okay, and then we also have photosystems, whereby we have photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. Photosystems are pigment molecules that participate in photosynthesis, right? So we have photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. And then so with that said, now we are gonna come into this diagram. This diagram is a representation of a thylakoid, right? of a thylakoid. So basically this is a thylakoid, and then the space inside here is the thylakoid space, and then outside it is the stroma. It is the stroma. So then now, what happens in the light reactions of photosynthesis? Light reactions of photosynthesis, pigment molecules, chlorophyll A and antenna pigments, they capture light, right? They capture light from the sun, and then they take the light and they transport it into photosystem 2. So they take light from the sun, and then they transpose it into photosystem 2, right? Now, the reason why it starts at photosystem 2 instead of photosystem 1 is because photosystem 2 was discovered before photosystem 1. That is why we start with photosystem 2, right? PS2. And then now, pigments, antenna pigments, and this is one thing I did not explain. We have the reaction center. The reaction center are pigment molecules that capture the light and then transfer it to the photosystem, which participates in photosynthesis. And then antenna pigments, they also capture light, and then they transpose it to the reaction center. So the reaction center is where photosystem occurs, and then antenna pigments are found next to them, to the reaction center. And then antenna pigments do not participate in photosynthesis. They do not make anything in photosynthesis. They just take the light and then they transfer it to the reaction center. And each and every chloroplast is usually surrounded by 50 reaction center molecules and about like 300 antenna pigment molecules. Okay, so then now what happens is antenna pigments, they capture light from the sun, and then they take the light and they funnel it to the reaction center, where we get photosystems 2. And then from there, within that, when that happens, 2 electrons are excited. When those electrons are excited, they start their journey on the electron transport chain. Like I said, the electron transport chain, it moves electrons from protein to protein. And over here we have photosystem 2, we have the reaction center, and we have antenna pigments, and we have proteins. Okay, so then now the excited electrons, they jump, and then when they jump, they start their movement within the electron transport chain, and then they move into the next protein within. They move to the next protein within the thylakoid membrane. And let me state this: the light reactions of photosynthesis occurs on the thylakoid membrane. As you can see, this is within the membrane, and the membrane has proteins that help in photosynthesis. And then now the electrons are excited, and then they move into the next protein in the chain. And then what happens? How does the cell replace these lost electrons? It breaks down water. And then, so over here, it breaks down the H2O molecule, and then from the H2O molecule, the electrons from oxygen go back to over here, and then they are replaced. And then obviously when we break down water, we're gonna have oxygen and hydrogen. And then obviously the oxygen, which is more electronegative, is gonna take the electrons, and then the hydrogen is stripped away from any electrons, and it becomes a proton. It becomes positive. So now it becomes protons, right? All the H, they become protons, right? And then these protons from hydrogen, they go into the thylakoid space. Within the thylakoid space, they create a a gradient, and this gradient is a form of potential energy, and this form of potential energy is what is going to make ATP. In the same time, these protons, they are in the thylakoid space, but they now a form of enzyme called an ATP synthase. ATP synthase attracts and pulls these protons out of the thylakoid space, and then these protons now move out of ATP synthase. So this is a ATP synthase. And as you can already tell, ATP synthase is what makes ATP. So then now these protons, they are pumped out of the thylakoid space, and they are pumped out and they come out through the ATP synthase. And then when they come out of the thylakoid space, obviously they'll be within the stroma. And then as they come out, they interact with ADP, and then ADP attracts phosphates, and then when we mix ADP with a phosphate with the help of this protein, with these protons, we get ATP. So this is how the light reactions make ATP, and this ATP is made by chemiosmotic phosphorylation. This is the production of ATP through the help of proteins that come out of the ATP synthase, right? They come out of the ATP synthase, and then now we have ATP, but then we have ATP, but then now we still need to make NADPH, right? So which is what happens. These electrons pass through to the next protein, and then they go over to the next protein, right? When they get to the next protein, the protein that has photosystems 1, PS1, that is where antenna pigments capture more light from the sun, and then they take the light from the sun. So PS1 works pretty much the same as PS2, but then now in this case we are going to make NADPH from NAD+. So now they take the pigments take solar energy from the sun, and then they take the solar energy and they transfer it into chemical energy, and then they take this chemical energy, they transpose it, they funnel it to the reaction center. Then within the reaction center, there's the photosystem ones that work together and use the electrons that are already coming from the other proteins within the protein chain to reduce NAD plus into NADPH. So then now they are reduced, and then when they're reduced, we get NADPH. So NADPH is produced in photosystem 1. Now we have our two products. Now we have ATP and NADPH, which will come together and they will do their jobs in carbon reactions of photosynthesis. With that said, now we move over to the carbon reactions of photosynthesis. The carbon reactions of photosynthesis are also called the Kelvin cycle, all right? And then the carbon reactions of photosynthesis are also called the light independent, because they do not require light. They just need carbon dioxide, ATP, and NADPH. And what happens over here, we get the carbon fixation, which is the initial incorporation of carbon from CO2 into an organic molecule, right? So then now what we do is we have carbon fixation, whereby carbon comes together and reacts with ribulose biphosphate, which is also called RuBH, which is a 5-carbon sugar, and then the carbon and RuBH will come together and react to produce the glucose that we have as a product of photosynthesis. And then rubisco is the enzyme that catalyzes this reaction. And then when rubisco catalyzes reaction, it undergoes other reactions, and then in the final step we get our glucose that is made. So now remember that photosynthesis uses CO2 plus H2O to produce C6H12O6 plus H2 plus O2, plus O2. So now we have 6 molecules of carbon dioxide reacting with 6 molecules of oxygen to produce glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. And then oxygen is the byproduct of photosynthesis. And that concludes our discussion and our learning about photosynthesis. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you learned something, and good luck with your test, with your exams, and everything that you're preparing for with this. Thank you very much for watching, and our next video is going to be about respiration, which is essentially the reverse of photosynthesis. Thank you for watching. Can't wait to see you in the next video.